Hey, what's up? GW coming to you live. Yeah, I know I was off last week and I've gotten a lot of flack for that. Um, because it was just too hectic, too crazy. And like I said, I've had some personal situations going on that we're dealing with. Also, today it is 6:22:25, and we are going to be hit with a massive heat wave, and we're talking temperatures, heat index probably over 100, and it's going to suck. So if you're going to cut your yard or something, I would suggest do it and get the hell up out of the sun. But that's not why I'm here. I just want to give you guys some sage like advice on that. Couple of things we're going to cover in this video. This video is specifically going to be for Jaws. Now, if you guys have been living under a rock and don't know how old Jaws is turning 50. Um, And that's a heck of a milestone, especially for a movie that still continues to terrify to this day. Um, if you haven't seen Jaws, then you're missing a classic in cinema as well as horror as well as paranoia. And I say paranoia because it gives you the fear no matter where you're at and you look out into a large body of water, your mental state will automatically jump to the shark, and it has the power to instill fear in you. And released in June of 1975, directed by Steven Spielberg, it maintained its power, and it's really an amazing film because, like I just said, it continues to terrify to this day. Um, so, why is this a big thing? Well, because it almost didn't get directed. It almost didn't get, I said directed. It almost didn't get released because it was way over budget. It was way behind the schedule, and Steven Spielberg thought he was going to be fired. That's basically what that note was about. It was based on a novel by Peter Benchley. The novel actually goes into a lot more R-rated content than the PG version of Jaws actually did. In the movie, or in the book rather, there is a lot of stuff with Ellen Brody that got cut out. There was a lot of I don't even know how to explain it. I read the book years ago. Sexual debauchery going on, I guess, with her character, and basically got cut out because Steven Spielberg wanted a monster movie, not a movie about an affair. Now, some years ago, I actually came across, and I made a video of it. I stumbled upon what would make Jaws an R-rated film. And there was a picture of when the shark attacks Alex Kintner. There was a picture of the kid in Jaws' mouth. And I guess the sequence was supposed to be where the shark clamps down and it was supposed to be really bloody and gory. It was actually cut. No no film of this actually exists, but I remember getting on the net and I remember showing you, and it was probably one of the most watched videos that I have done. And it was interesting to see that there was no film for that. Just a picture, which crazy. Another thing that made Jaws iconic was the soundtrack, that dun 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 dun. It was created by John Williams. And believe it or not, led him to a Grammy. He won a Grammy for that soundtrack. And when you hear it, you instantly again jump back to the shark. Um, let's see. I'm going to go into plot next, but let's just see here something. Became an attraction on the Universal Studios tour tram in Hollywood just after its release in 1976. So it was made in 75, released in 76. I remember going on the Jaws ride, and it was great. And they really hammed it up. They condensed about two movies into a 15-minute ride. And I remember me and my sister, we went on that ride countless times. It has since been demolished. A lot of and accidents were behind the scenes of that, but it was an awesome fairly ride. I'm sure you can get on YouTube, Google up, and see the actual ride as it was intended. I think there's even footage of people getting attacked on that ride. I don't know. But it featured the shark in various different, settings from the movies. It also found its way into popular culture. Saturday Night Live sketched the land shark. If you guys are around in the 70s or have seen any of those old SNL shows, Jaws made the jump from movie theater to pop culture, I think, with this one scene, and it was great. Was a shark roaming around the hotel of a apartment complex, and it was pretty cool. So, let's talk about other stuff. The shark on the film, the animatronic shark, or I guess, for lack of a better term, you know, uh, winch and pulley operated shark, however you want to put it, never really worked half the time. Steven Spielberg was afraid that the movie would not be complete or it'd have to abandon project because they wanted the shark to do something and it would never do it. And if it did, it was once in a while. So he fought with that the entire production. The other thing that really gets you about the film is the opening scene where Chrissy Watkins' character and her boyfriend lies drunk on the beach. She jumps out and goes swimming and immediately gets attacked. And I got to tell you something, guys. I've seen a ton of horror films. You guys know that. But that scene just wrenches your gut every time because it's so horrifying because you don't see what's happening to her. You just hear her scream, see her being pushed around in the water. And the funny thing is, the actress that played her was actually, the way they did that scene, guys, was they had Steven Spielberg on the bottom of the ocean with a rope and just kept pulling her. And she improvised all that stuff. At least that's what I thought I heard. So it spawned 3 sequels. The only one that's worth noting is probably number 2. Number 4 actually was the worst in the series because the shark attacks the Brody family in Hawaii. It started out great, and then the shark moves to Hawaii, which when you're a kid, you think that's the greatest thing in the world. A shark following your family. It's going to be great. Until you realize that sharks can't live in the Bahama waters. It destroys the story. Everything that you wanted to like about it was destroyed with that simple fact. There was also a subplot of an Indian shaman conjuring the shark up to attack Ellen Brody. None of that made it to screen, and it probably would have been a better movie because of it. Jaws was filmed also on Martha's Vineyard. In fact, we just saw something on the TV where the iconic bridge from Jaws was still there. Now, when it came to filming, the main actors, Roy Schneider, Richard Dreyfuss, and Robert Shaw, could not get along together. That's a known fact. There was constant arguments about Jaws, among the actors, and there was a lot of tension on the set. The other thing that's noteworthy was how in 1975 Jaws did push an envelope with the shark attacks. Steven Spielberg wanted to make them as real as possible. If you notice, or if you have any of the Blu-rays, I have the 40th edition, and you see things that were cut, but the majority of the blood is still left in there. And it really made a hell of a landmark, or a hell of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Hell of a mark on pop culture as well as horror today. Now, it actually was filmed from May to October 1974 in Martha's Vineyard, and actually was released the film. Universal Pictures released the film over 450 screens. And as soon as word of mouth got around, the thing blew up. I mean, literally. So if you don't know the plot, or you're new to Jaws, or you're hearing about all this 50th anniversary crap, and you want to know what the hell this movie's about, it's actually very simple. New England beach town of Amityville Island is terrorized by a giant great white shark. It kills a few people very graphically. A hunt is set out, and by this time in the film, the police chief of police, played by. Sorry, thought I was going to sneeze. The chief of police, played by Roy Schneider, has to deal with it. When he realizes he can't deal with it, he hires out to Quint, played by Robert Shaw. And Quint is a freelance fisherman that wants to go kill the shark. Says he can do it. They have no choice but to pay him. One condition that Police Chief Brody, played by Roy Schneider, as well as a scientist, played by Richard Dreyfuss, go with him. They changed the ending of the book a little bit, but there was actually, in the movie, there is a scene where they're talking about shark attacks on the orca very late in the film. And Quint, played by Robert Shaw, actually harkens back to World War II. Now, there was talk of a prequel film about that shark incident he described, but nothing ever came to fruition because basically they wanted to focus on sequels, not prequels at that point. Now, the cast includes, like I said, Roy Schneider, Robert Shaw. Lorraine Gray plays Ellen Brody, Chief Brody's wife. Michael Hamilton plays the mayor of the town. The mayor doesn't want to do anything about the shark attacks. He just wants to keep things open because it's summertime. Everybody's coming to the beach. Everybody's spending money, so he doesn't want to shut anything down. Go figure that out. Again, it was released on June 20th. It ran 124 minutes. It was $9 million at the box office to make. It grossed $477.9 million. So, big blockbuster. Like I said, the development was plagued by faulty sharks, faulty shark operations, and being over budget and being days before the release, or days and days, like we're talking 100 and some days behind schedule. So, but yeah, one of the things that really got it the PG rating was the Alex Kintner attack scene, and I cannot stress this enough. Had this scene would have been filmed the way that the picture showed it, it probably would have been an R, and it probably would have not have grossed as much money as what it did. Now again, the sequels, the second one takes place with mostly the same cast minus Robert Shaw from the first film because he didn't make it. And it deals with Chief Brody having to deal with the shark again. And there is a regatta. So they wanted to up the stakes. The regatta, his kids are on the regatta and he once again has to face the shark. And it has some pretty wicked attacks. Nothing like we haven't seen before, but just basically things. And it kept the film flowing. And actually, the second one is probably one of the better ones. The third one was so completely unreal. It wasn't even funny. And they capitalized on the gimmick of 3D. So, and it was 1983. Now, again, another big 3D film that came out and toward that year was Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D. And that film did way better. It had better effects, had better, better gimmicks. Jaws 3D was probably a cash grab, I would say. And it was filmed, and basically the story takes place in SeaWorld, a SeaWorld-like, facility, where Michael Brody, the son of Martin Brody, worked. And Dennis Quaid played, believe it or not, Michael Brody. It also stars Bess Armstrong and Louis Gossett Jr. Bess Armstrong, I've only seen in like 2 other films. And Louis Gossett Jr., he plays the head of the SeaWorld place, Calvin Bouchard. Basically, the plot of the film is they want to capture a great white in captivity. They get one. And it's not too long before its mother comes knocking at the SeaWorld type gates and attacks people. Now, the one thing I will say about this film is about any Jaws film released, this one has the most gore to it. I mean, you get a severed head floating around, half a bitten body, corpses in, all kinds of decay. The ending of it was just totally ridiculous. And the 3D was not used to its credibility. It is probably the worst Jaws film that was ever released until 4 came along. There's a quote that says, "Pure nonsense considering some of the cinemas were actually turning over more money per screen than Star Wars." Critical response, Jaws 2 had mixed response, while Jaws 3D was generally negative. I mean, it's a fun watch if you go in and put your brain on vacation, But again, Roy Schneider was not in it. He didn't even want to be bothered. And there was a running joke that this film was supposed to be a parody called Jaws 3 Human Zero. And it was, you can look that up, and I'm glad it never came to fruition. So then we get to the last of the Jaws films. And I remember going to see this one in the theater down in Butler in the Penn Street. Jaws the Revenge. I saw the trailer for it. I wanted to see it. I was like 10, 12 maybe. I wanted to see this film so bad. And I read the book. And I thought it was great. Until, like I told you, when you realize sharks can't swim in warm water or live in warm water, the complete plot goes to hell and nothing in the plot even matters. So, the film again focuses on Michael Brody, and he is now working in the Bahamas collecting shellfish to do research on. Lorraine Gary, she's been in all of them except for 3, plays again Ellen Brody. Ellen Brody loses her son at the beginning of the movie, which is a very wicked type attack, which really hooks you again. It takes you back to the first attack in the first film, but after that, like I said, the film falls apart once you realize, like I said, that fact I told you about. It's not too long before the shark tries to attack Michael Brody while he's diving. Also in this film, Mario Van Peebles, which provides comic relief. Michael Caine is in this film. And the shark not only sets his sights on Ellen Brody, Michael Brody, but the whole Brody family. And the ending is probably one of the most ridiculous, not thought out endings ever. They actually changed the ending for the TV version. So, again, it's worth it if you just want to see it, but I wouldn't go to the theater again and see it, guys, if I know. So, getting back to Jaws' 50th anniversary. The reason that this film is hailed as a critical, amazing film, and it still has the power to scare, because it does. If you don't even watch number 2 and you just go into the first film and you just watch that, it still scares you. I mean, I've actually have been swimming in rivers or oceans and that, and as soon as I hear that, I get goosebumps. And it really has the power to terrify. Unlike the other 3 sequels, this film really, really does it. Jaws took over pop culture too. There was games released on it, board games, video games, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it really hit the pop culture mark. A lot of knockoffs were actually made too, like Orca, Tentacles, one about a killer whale, the other one about a squid, alligator. Everybody was jumping on the Jaws ripoff bandwagon at this point, but there was only one true king, and it was Jaws. And all of them are available on Peacock. You can also see Jaws in theaters. It's playing for a limited time due to the 50th anniversary, but if you have Peacock, check it out. it is one of the movies that's so iconic that everybody in the world should know it. As soon as you hear that music or you see water, the mental picture of shark attacks or the terror should hit you. And that's what makes it, you know, that's what has made it last this long. So check out Jaws if you haven't seen it or you've, you know, heard about it and not seen it. Check it out. Read the book too if you're an avid reader and see what they cut out. I'm not going to ruin it for you. But watch 1 and 2, skip the other two. Now there is a rumor there is going to be a new film, Jaws and New Blood, but nothing has ever been factual. So anyway, Massacre, and that was about Jaws and its legacy. Peace.